Hey, it's Eric the Master Blaster back with you. Definitely glad to be back. Remember, if you don't have this paperwork or this card, or you are in an illegal state, store this information until you are allowed to medically help yourself. All right, we're going to go over germination today, which is a very important part of making a medical product. I personally use Crop King seeds because I know they create a medical product. I've been using them for a few years. Basically, before we start, my company's Leaves of Relief. And there's a reason I use Crop King seeds and why I'm going to teach you how to germinate and cultivate medical cannabis. We create a very healing lotion that I created for somebody that had plaque psoriasis, my brother. I have 4 shattered vertebrae, and it's been extremely helpful. I also have PTSD from the military, have difficult time sleeping. So I make an edible candy with a pretty little mold, and they're very tasty, and they help me sleep. They don't mess you all up. I also make a tincture with some of my medical problems, and people I work with that have cancer, they have appetite problems. And just a simple dropper under the tongue seems to increase appetite. We also, because I'm a severe asthmatic, I take the extraction that we've explained on making shatter and everything and turn it into an e-vape oil. So that's a brief thing on my company. The main talk of this is germination. I use Crop King seeds, and we're going to be doing Master Kush cheese. The main thing about making a medical product is you have to have a medical seed. I use Crop Kings and SWG. There's a specific way to make it work. I take a glass of water. This is what's recommended from these companies as well. You take a glass of water, spring water, not tap water, not filtered water, spring water, all right, because you want purity. And you want to put your seeds in there, as you'll see, and they have been floating for 18 hours. You'll notice some will fall to the bottom, which is no problem. What we're going to do, okay, after these have been soaking for 18 hours, you're going to take a paper towel. I like a perforated paper towel. Make sure it does not have any kind of dye in it. Any kind of paper towel that has a color or anything has dye in it. Remember, we're trying not to contaminate anything we're doing because we're making a medical product. So even I get to the extent, the spoon we're getting ready to use to put these in here, get you an alcohol pad. Notice I'm also wearing gloves. Clean off your spoon, then lick it. No, I'm kidding. We're going for sanitation. Clean off your spoon. So we have a nice perforated paper towel down here that's wet and soaked. And then what we're going to do is take our seeds and we're going to lay them in on the paper towel. We don't want to touch them. Remember, any oils off your skin, anything like that, you're contaminating. I'll get the rest of this out later. And then what I'll do is just spread them around and do the exact same thing that I've done here. You notice how they're spread it out in their spaces. And these are great because if you can see out of the camera, they've already started to crack from being in the glass. So this will speed up our process. And you'll notice I take care when I put these on so that it's easy to come off. So let's spread these out real quick. Then you're going to take another perforated towel, just lay it on top. I like to fold these over because when you add water, they allow it to drain water. And then you take the rest of the water out of your glass because it's still spring water. And you dampen the rest of your towels. Make sure it's all good and soaked. And folding it like this for me allows it to hold more moisture and drain back down into what you're doing. Take it to your sink. Drain off the excess. And then you take that. Okay, once we have it on the plate and we put it in the dark spot, and we're going to take at least 3 days. Crop King seeds, I usually have a good taproot after 3 days. Now, some seeds are stubborn. You want to keep letting them go. I've had to go to 7 to 10 days to get them to go ahead and crack and germinate. But that is an extremely important question because I set an alarm on my phone for every 5 hours. And every 5 hours I come in with spring water and I spritz it on the top of the paper towel to keep it moist. Because if you dry that out, that taproot has nothing to feed off of and it won't germinate. So after this has been sitting in the dark, cool spot for at least 3 days, or to where your taproot is at least, I don't know, I like a 1/4 inch long. It's day 3, so we're gonna have taproots, which is the fun part. Look at how wonderful medical crop king seeds are. Because in 3 days, these taproots are just unbelievable. And then I want to show you what happens when you have a lesser quality company. Do you see any taproots? Same timeline. These are crop kings on both ends. Notice that we have taproots, big taproots on every seed, except for the one that didn't come from crop kings. So now let's learn what we do next. First of all, I recommend that you get a little bit of greenhouse. I do hydroponics and I do soil, but I also prefer to germinate in this manner. So we're going to take this piece of rock wool. Now you'll notice, let me explain this. You'll notice there's an air pump here, and I'll unplug it in a second for the rest of the video. And you'll notice all the air bubbles up. The reason is aeration. The roots of your plant, they need air. The top of your plant needs CO2 and emits air. We'll go into that later when we talk about growing. So I put air stones in something like this, and it blows bubbles. And one's like this, and it blows bubbles. And what that's doing, when you place what we're going to show you right over those air bubbles, is it's blowing oxygen into that taproot, and it's helping it to mature. So what we'll do is we'll take our piece of rock wool. I gently split it open. We'll pick out a good taproot. Let's pick out. Let's go with one of the longer ones. Let's go with this one. Again, gloves, and be very gentle. You do not want to damage that taproot whatsoever. Actually, what I'm doing right now is very wrong in all this light. Now I lay that taproot in gently. Yeah. Hopefully y'all can see how the roots go in. And now all taproots look a little different, but the main key is that this is up top, facing upwards, so that we can start a seedling. So then take your rock wool block, which is now your little baby, and I like to pick the spots that have the most air bubbles coming out. The reason that I like to use rock wool is because I do hydroponics and soil. And in hydroponics, you can't have dirt going into a bucket of water. It will contaminate it, and it'll mess it all up. And we'll go into deep water culture and soil later on. But also, because you can use the rock wool, once this is germinated under these water bubbles, here in about 4 or 5 days, there will be roots coming out of the bottom there, because I also use a root starter. And then you just remove that, take your solo cup or whatever you want to start your seedling with, and just place it down in the soil. When I start germination, I use a T5, which is this, and you'll notice these are fluorescent bulbs, and I put that about this high above here, and that will allow the seedlings to begin. That's what's called germination. And the other reason I like to use rock wool, because even if I'm doing soil or deep water culture, that's what you use. Because you can take that rock wool block, it'll have a big root system in there, and you can put it in your soil. Forget the solo cup, you can go right into your next container until everything's root bound and you want to transplant. We'll go into that another time. But I want to demonstrate why you use one light than another. I use LEDs. Sodiums are great. They actually perform sometimes better than LEDs, but that's usually for large grows, and it costs a lot to run them. and you have to have a lot of extra equipment. But you can go from a T5, and then once we have seedlings, you're going to go to a full spectrum LED. If you're going to do a full spectrum LED, you always protect your eyes. But I want you to see the difference in the spectrum between that and a full spectrum LED. You notice the different colors is blinding, especially on the video. And this is not even high powered like what I'm running. So just wanted to briefly go over anything when you're making a medical product. As soon as you get past seedling stage and you're going into growth, you're going to have trim, and I'm going to teach you how to trim. But when you're growing a good medical cannabis seed that comes from companies like these, there is so many healing properties in just the trim leaves, the roots, the stems. We use Leaves of Relief uses every aspect of the plant. So you want to hold on to these things, and this is what's going to create your base oils, and it's also can be used to put back in your soil. We'll go into that later. And then we'll go into plant anomalies like this. It doesn't even look like a cannabis plant, does it? Nice strain called Trainwreck. And we'll go into that later. Hey everybody, this is Eric the Master Blaster back, and I wanted to talk to everybody. This is Peanut. The prohibition is almost over in cannabis. You know, cannabis did not go illegal till practically the day after alcohol prohibition ended. And come on, what did alcohol do medically for anybody? As a severe alcoholic, I can tell you that it didn't do anything for my life. I also had an opiate addiction because I have severe pain. For 20 years, the Veterans Administration fed me opiates, you know, and I came off of that to learn how to make cannabis products that would heal me. Cannabis is an extremely healing product. What we need to be doing is passing along information, because legalities are going good from different states. And if Trump does what he said, then it's going to be legal nationwide soon. So we need to start talking about what we can do medically, how we can help people. We need to start passing along information like my company, Leaves of Relief, does. You know, also, the people advocating cannabis, we need to start presenting ourselves better. We need people that are serious in the medical community. We need the lawyers, the doctors that use this life-saving medicine to speak out. And all the other people that just want to smoke and stand on the street corners and talk about how great it is need to be quiet for a little while. So let's all share information. Let's help prohibition end.